year 1969, there was a very big achievement for the human space development, because in the year 1969, in the month of July, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, who were on a spaceship called Apollo 11, first successfully performed the crewed lunar landing. And the images of this landing were broadcast in each and every television of the homes of millions. And now it is the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 space missions. But a part of this achievement, did you ever thought about these animals who have been to space, and some of them have also lost their lives for the human space development? And now it is the perfect moment to remember these great animals who have been to space and have contributed so much information for the scientists in the field of space development. And today we are going to talk about such 10 animals who have been to space. And now let's start with number 1.
Number 1.
It was in 1947 when the first animal was sent to space. And it was not a dog after all. It was a humble fruit fly. And they sent the fly into space because the American scientists wants to know that whether the cosmic radiation affects the astronauts if they go in space in future. This is why they choose these flies, because they are genetically similar to humans. And they sat in a V-2 ballistic missile recovered from Nazis after the end of World War II. And it was sent about 1,009 kilometers up in the sky, which is officially known as the beginning of space. And after they reached 109 kilometers, the capsule in which the flies were was parachuted to New Mexico, and when they opened the capsule, all the flies were alive and there was no other clue of cosmic radiation. From this only, the journey of animals into space got started.
Number 2.
Incredibly, 32 monkeys and apes have been gone to space, and including pigtailed monkey, squirrel-tailed monkey and chimpanzee. The very first was rhesus macaque called Albert II. In 1949, he reached 134 kilometers, but sadly he died due to a parachute failure when coming back inside the Earth's atmosphere. But before that also, one monkey was sent to space called Albert I, who died due to suffocating in his capsule even before the spaceship left the land.
Number 3.
These rodents have long been used to find out more about how space travel will affect the human body. In fact, NASA has recently published a detailed study of mice housed at the International Space Station. It shows that mice quickly adapt to microgravity conditions. The very first mouse, which was sent to space in 1950, who traveled 137 kilometers, but unlike the fruit flies, he died as he landed due to a parachute failure.
Number 4.
Number of dogs have been gone to space, but one of the most famous is Laika, who went to space in 1957. She was a stray dog or a stray puppy who was picked up in Moscow, and she was chosen because of her gentle temperament. The scientists also believe that stray dogs are much suitable to cooperate with adverse conditions. And though other dogs have also been to space before her, she was famous for the first animal who orbited the Earth. But she was never to come back because she was only sent to space with only one meal and 7 days of oxygen. And the severed government claims she survived for 7 days. But the truth is that she died after only 5 hours of launch due to overheating of the flight.
Number 5.
In 1968, there was a race between USA and Soviet Union to send the first man on moon. And this is why the Soviet Union sent Zone 5 spaceship with some sample of seeds and soil, some worms and 2 tortoises. And the Zone 5 orbited moon and came back to Earth after 6 days. However, the plan for Zone 5 was to land in Kazakhstan, but the spaceship landed in the Indian Ocean. And thankfully, the tortoises were still alive, but they lost 10% of their weight.
Number 6.
These amphibians have been helping make one great leap for mankind since 1959. However, the most significant frog flight came in 1970 when NASA launched the orbiting Frog Olithid spacecraft containing 2 bullfrogs. The word Olithid refers to frog's inner ear balance mechanism, and the experiment was designed to investigate the effect of space travel on motion sickness. Electrodes were implanted into the frog's thorax and the vestibular system within the ear to record data on the effects of sustained weightlessness. The study found that after 6 days, the frogs acclimatized and their vestibular system has returned to normal.
Number 7.
After the success of manned mission to the moon in 1969, now the sending of animals into space, the popularity became a little bit lower. But still now the scientists were still now interested in what will happen to biological functions of animals into space travel. This is why in 1973, 2 garden spiders called Anita and Arabella were used in an experiment to see if they could still spin webs in space. The experiment was the brainchild of Massachusetts High School student Judith Miles. Both spiders managed to spin webs even though the webs were slightly finer than on Earth. The study revealed a great deal about the effects of microgravity on motor response.
Number 8.
First aquans to reach space were a type of minnow found in salt marshes, the mummichoke, plus 50 eggs. It was 1973 and NASA were keen to observe the effects on microgravity on the animals that move 3-dimensionally on Earth. The human astronauts suffer from space sickness, and likewise this fish swarm into the loops rather than straight lines. In a few days, both the astronauts and fish had got their bearings. And most recently, in 2012, the Japanese Space Agency decided to send fish up to the International Space Station. The aquarium had an automatic feeding system, a water circulation system, and LED lights to represent day and night. The fish chosen to go up were macaques, which have transparent skin, making it easier for the researchers to see what was going on inside the fish. The purpose of experiment was to see how fish would respond to radiation impact, bone degradation and muscle wastage.
Number 9.
2007, tardigrades were the first animal to live in outer space without oxygen or nothing, and known as water bears as microscopic invertebrates, able to deal with almost anything on Earth, so perhaps it's not surprise. Lack of oxygen, radiation, freezing cold, dehydration, nothing affects tardigrades. The tardigrades were dried out before the flight and then orbited the Earth outside a rocket for 10 days. When they were rehydrated, when they were returned to Earth, they found that 68 have survived the extreme cold and space radiation.
Number 10.
In 2003, the Columbia space shuttle disintegrated when it re-entered the Earth's atmosphere. You might know this because this was a very famous accident. Tragically, 7 astronauts on board were killed. There were 8 science experiments aboard the shuttle as well. Incredibly, when these were recovered from the wreckage, did you know a live group of nematodes who are kind of warm were still alive and they survived the heat? Now, nematodes, also called as roundworms, are often used to study the impact of the space travel on organisms. And with this list of 10 animals who have been to space, I would like to end today's video. So if you like today's amazing topic, then give us a like and subscribe our channel, and for proper updates, press the bell icon too. And if you can suggest any topic, I will be very glad to make a video on it. So it's all for today. Till then, goodbye.